Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabrutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Vipa Sindhu Vyaevasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidaya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart, it becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukham karoti vatalam pangum langayate girim yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Varum Dinataranam yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Varum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Today we're reading the last text from this chapter, chapter 27 of the fourth canto, a chapter entitled Attack by Chandavega on the city of Puranjana. Prajvaro ayam mama bhrata tvam cha me bhagini bhava bhava charami ubhabhyam loke asmin avyakto bhima sainikaha prajvaro yam mama bhrata tvam cha me bhagani bhava charam yubhavyam lokesmin avyakto bhina shainikaha prajvaro yam mama bhrata tvam cha me bhagini bhava charam yuk bhavyam lokesmin avyakto bhima shainikaha prajvaro yam mama bhrata tvam cha me bhagini bhava charanyo bhavyam lokesmin avyakto bhima shainikaha
Kachvaro yam mama brata, Vam chame bhagini bhava, Charamya ubhavyam lokesmin, Avyakto bhima sainika,
Kachvaro yam mama brata,
Kachvaro yam mama brata,
Vam chame bhagini bhava,
Vam chame bhagini bhava,
Charanyu babram bhavyam lokesmin,
Charamya bhavyam lokesmin,
Avyakto bimasai nikaha,
Avyakto bhima sainika.
Ladies.
Prajvaro yam mama brata, Amchame bhagini bhava, Charanyu bhavyam lokesmin, Avyakto bhima
Prajvara, named Prajvara, ayam, this, mama, my, bhrata, brother, tvam, you, cha, also, me, my
my
Bhagini,
Bhagini,
sister,
sister,
Bhava,
Bhava,
become
become
Charami,
Dharani,
I shall go about
I shall go about
Ubhabhyam,
Bhavyam
by both of you,
by both of you,
Loke,
Loke,
in the world,
in the world,
Asmin,
Asmin,
this,
this,
Avyaktaha,
Avyaktaha,
without being manifest,
without being manifest,
Bhima,
Bhima,
dangerous,
dangerous,
Sainikaha,
Sainika,
with soldiers.
with soldiers.
Translation and purport by Divine Grace C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The king of the Yavanas continued, here is my brother Prajvara. I now accept you as my sister. I shall employ both of you, as well as my dangerous soldiers, to act imperceptibly within this world. Kindly repeat after me. The king of the Yavanas continued.
The king of the Yavanas continued.
Here is my brother Prajvara.
Here is my brother Prajvara.
I now accept you as my sister.
I now accept you as my sister.
I shall employ both of you,
I shall employ both of you,
as well as my dangerous soldiers,
as well as my dangerous soldiers,
to act imperceptibly
to act imperceptibly
within this world.
within this world.
Report. Kalakanya was sent by Narada Muni to Yavana Raja so that she might become his wife. But instead of accepting her as his wife, Yavana Raja accepted her as his sister. Those who do not follow the Vedic principles are unrestricted as far as sex life is concerned. Consequently, they sometimes do not hesitate to have sex with their sisters. In this age of Kali, there are many instances of such incest. Although Yavana Raja accepted the request of Narada Muni to show respect to him, he was nonetheless thinking of illicit sex. This was due to his being the king of the Yavanas and Mileshas. The word Prajvara is very significant, for it means the fever sent by Lord Vishnu. Such a fever is always set at 107 degrees, the temperature at which a man dies. Thus, the king of the Mileshas and Yavanas requested the daughter of time, Kalakanya, to become his sister. There was no need to ask her, thank you. There was no need to ask her to become his wife, for the Yavanas and Mileshas do not make distinctions as far as sex life is concerned. Thus, one may outwardly be a sister, mother, or daughter, and still have sex. Yavana Raja's brother was Prajvara, and Kalakanya was invalidity itself. Combined and strengthened by the soldiers of Yavana Raja, namely non-hygienic conditions, illicit sex, and ultimately a high degree of temperature to bring on death, they would be able to smash the materialistic way of life. In this connection, it is significant that Narada was immune to the attack of Jara, or invalidity. And similarly, Jara, or the destructive force, cannot attack any follower of Narada Muni, or a pure Vaishnava. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 27th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Attack by Chandavega on the city of King Puranjana, the character of Kalakanya. Translation again. The king of the Yavanas continued, "Here is my brother, Prajvara. I now accept you as my sister. I shall employ both of you, as well as my dangerous soldiers, to act imperceptibly within this world." So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes reference to those who do not follow Vedic principles. We have a situation in the world today where the vast majority of people actually don't follow Vedic principles, and therefore there is immense suffering, especially due to the built-in problems of life in the material world, namely these problems that are being referred to here as jara, old age, and disease, and ultimately, of course, death. At the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how personalities like Narada Muni, or those who follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni, will not be affected. Of course, one may say, well, devotees also grow old. Devotees are also diseased. However, it's a different situation in that when we actually follow the prescribed guidelines given, especially here we're talking about illicit sex and incest, which is prevalent all over the world in unthinkable manners. And we can recall how so many times Srila Prabhupada would emphasize the importance of brahmacharya life. Tapasya brahmacharyena samenacha damenacha. Samenacha damenacha. Controlling of the mind, controlling of the senses is meant to be practiced from very early life. And if one does this, then the process of old age will not be the same as those who don't follow it. I remember a few years back, quite a few years back, visiting one of my disciples who was an elderly Indian lady in a old age home. Nowadays, we know, we don't keep our parents at home. We send them to some institution. And in that particular, I'm sure it's not the only one, in that particular old age home, Yeah, water is here. That's fine. Many of the residents were actually, what's that word? They become, they cannot remember. Yeah, dementia. Most people in old age, one of the main reasons that their body grows old in a very obvious way, which also in old age the body is more resistant to all kinds of diseases, is largely due to not having followed what Vedic culture teaches us. I mean, these basic principles that we as devotees know. When we come in contact with Krishna consciousness, we generally don't know unless we're born in a devotee family or Vaishnava family. The most difficult principle to follow, especially in Kali Yuga, of the four principles is what is being referred to here, of course, illicit sex life. And we know how in the early stage of life, let's say childhood and youth, this is when the body biologically is meant to develop properly. And one of the important aspects for growing up and being healthy is to actually abstain from sex life. Therefore, both for the boys and the girls in the Vedic culture, abstinence or brahmacharya life is actually the norm, is meant to be the norm, the standard. And Prabhupada explains how if one remains brahmachari one's whole life, then his ability to cultivate knowledge and his ability to memorize is much higher than otherwise. Which means that actually there are both material benefits, material advantages, as well as spiritual benefits or spiritual advantages in following these Vedic principles, which basically help us in a very simple, natural way to lead what is called sattvic life, sattvic mode of goodness. The whole Vedic culture is, when we understand it, when we follow it, which includes the type of activities that we take up, the kind of work, just like something which is not obvious in modern day society, which is unknown actually to most people and unknown largely to our own devotees as well, is that the more natural lifestyle and occupation for the vast majority of people is meant to be connected with cows and land. We cannot avoid coming back to some of these basic concepts and principles that are again and again brought out in the pages of the Bhagavatam. And in many ways, as I get to speak on this subject matter more often than not, it reminds me how, when Krishna And the Bhagavad Gita explains to Arjuna, Bhaktosi me sakachiti rahasyam hitad uttamam. I'm speaking this knowledge to you because you are my devotee and my friend. This knowledge, which is actually very confidential. The the spiritual knowledge that we receive from Vedic literatures, from Bhagavad Gita, initially, is very confidential knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. Very confidential knowledge. Cannot, just like we meet so many people and ask them, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? I tried reading the Bhagavad Gita, but I don't understand. Initially, many people actually cannot so easily understand. In a similar way, and this is important for us as devotees, in a similar way, these principles which are being referred to here, which also leads to a particular lifestyle, particular way to live, particular way to be engaged, a particular type of education, a particular type of economy, because Vedic culture deals with all of these seemingly material aspects of life. It has to, because Vedic culture is complete. It's Vedic culture or Vedic knowledge. Vedic culture or Vedic literatures, the Vedas in themselves, therefore cover these two aspects. And therefore it is important, it is, I would say, very important for our devotees to understand more clearly, more deeply, these two aspects that simultaneously we naturally must practice spiritual life, but at the same time we should understand what is meant to be the ideal or standard way of living, which in modern day society is not followed, is unknown, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. We can only do this, or we can only begin to understand by knowing how the Vedic knowledge is an eternal knowledge, isn't it? Vedic knowledge is not created at some particular time by some individual. It's coming from Krishna directly. What is coming from Krishna directly is both transcendental knowledge as well as, because Krishna is aham sarvasya prabhavu vata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Krishna is the origin, is the creator, maintainer of this material world, and he has, in ways which are unthinkable for us, has created this world, we could say in very mysterious ways. The scientists are still discovering nature, isn't it? When I was younger, the knowledge and the definition of an atom was quite simple. And nowadays, scientists are totally amazed to find how very very detailed and complex is a simple atom, and there are, innumerable, cannot estimate. So the whole, in other words, the whole material creation is something that even human beings cannot so easily conceive. Point being that Krishna creates everything perfectly, and the more we are in line or follow or apply we say God-given principles that are within this creation, then we can more easily live in harmony with nature. We can be less affected, which is what Srila Prabhupada is indicating at the end here of the purport. Persons who are following in the footsteps of Narada Muni or pure devotees will not have to experience the type of sufferings that people experience when they don't follow. We read about in the Bhagavatam how when society is governed by saintly persons, so many examples are given in the Bhagavatam of Rajarshis, saintly kings. In the reign of Lord Ramachandra, of course, Lord Ramachandra is Supreme Lord himself, but whether it's King Rishabhadev or Prithu Maharaj or all such personalities who are God conscious, then the citizens, that's how it is described, one of the symptoms of the citizens within such society is that they're very happy, no complaints. So we are seeing, of course, and experiencing the opposite, because on these two levels, on the spiritual level and on the material level, the general masses of people and the general leaders in society today are ignorant of these basic principles. And therefore, the importance for us who are meant to understand and to cultivate this knowledge, and also meant to show by example how to live, not only spiritually but also materially, is extremely important. And that is one of many reasons why our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, spoke about the need to simultaneously cultivate, naturally, spiritual life, as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially, giving emphasis on the holy name, Sankirtan movement, but knowing and understanding at the same time that Krishna has created a system whereby we can live more simply, more easily, to meet our different necessities of life, and to reduce the various inconveniences and sufferings that, of course, are there in the material world. So it means that if we want to actually perform what is, of course, vipara upakar, is to give especially transcendental knowledge, but also it is important to show the proper way how we should be, beginning with what is basic in the Vedic culture and spoken about quite extensively. Devotees speak often about the problem of death, these four main problems of life, and we speak quite openly, quite often also about the problems of the sex life, which is the root cause and the root problem actually for the vast majority. And this can only be overcome and resolved if we nicely, properly understand the full spectrum of what the Vedic culture is all about. We're not meant simply to be happy living in our temples. We also need to educate and instruct the majority of our devotees, majority of our congregations actually, who are not living in our temples, who will never be living in temples, who are not meant to be living in our temples. But we have this duty, this responsibility to teach them. And it's a big challenge, of course, because the whole, as we know, of modern society is totally ignorant of these basic things. And again, a lot of our devotees as well. And therefore, it's a major challenge for all of us. So this is ending this section of this chapter here. I think there will be more similar discussions in the chapter to come here. These are a few thoughts or comments on this particular purport. I can ask a question. Why is it that within our society of devotees, we seem to be less, how to put it, less inclined or less interested in knowing about this particular aspect of, let's say, how we should live or where we should live, as opposed to simply, some will quote Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wherever we are, we simply can engage in activities of chanting the holy name and performing devotional service. My question, however, is why is it that most devotees, or many devotees, seemingly are less inclined to understand the importance of this whole other aspect, which I guess can be summarized in the whole ideology of Varnashrama Dharma. Anyone would like to venture? Yes, Devarshi Guru. You have the floor.
So it seems that we are like children in life, so we imbibe according to the association that we have.
We are what you say?
Like children, child. Like children in life, like child.
Like child.
Yeah. So we imbibe according to the association that we have. We imbibe things.
Okay. Yeah.
So I am realized that in this one, it depends on the leader, it depends on the teacher, it depends on, like for education, we have the Vedic education, we have the academic education, like different. And in the same way, according to our, to the devotee who are guiding us, it's been we have different emphasis on different topics. Like, in my own life, I've seen that it's like meditation is very, very essential. And if we have devotee who understand Anashanama, who can guide us, it's more easy. If we have devotee who are not interested so much like Anashanama, it means we have no clue, no idea.
Okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Also, the devotees mention like bad examples from the past. For example, in our country, Czech Republic, we have heard that Anashama is almost like a bad word. Like, to blame someone by using it.
It's a bad word.
Because of the past experience.
Yes. So similar, I guess. Yeah.
It seems that there is devotees who want to, like, especially the aspect of moving to the land, living a simple lifestyle. There is some devotees who would like to do that, but then it's very difficult to do it alone. Usually, such lifestyle is meant to be lived in a community where many different people and families, they support each other and do the whole structure. And then to build up a community becomes very difficult just because of infrastructure. How to get so much land and building to accommodate so many people in one place who can then support each other. Yeah. And also the government is not really supportive of this kind of lifestyle. Even the people outside, they have a hard time to maintain themselves with a simple lifestyle. The farmers, they have to start doing all kinds of strange things in agricultural methods in order to maintain themselves. So these two things came to my mind.
I think about that before we were very engaged in material way of life, and then we came to Krishna consciousness, and then everything else is regarded as Maya, so everything is illusion, and then we are a little bit maybe in anxiety to go back to where we were, and we're thinking, oh, family life is Maya, and thinking about food is Maya, going to the land is Maya, and so we think we are now just transcendental, and we do transcendental activities, and don't consider the other aspect. Yeah, this comes to mind. And also, then we hear about all these things, but my question is always, what should we do now? What can I do personally, and where should we start?
But I also think that many devotees are not so clear what does it actually mean about ashram. And maybe myself, I'm not so clear about it. Because just to say we have to go on the countryside and live like farmers, that's not everything, you know, like we need to go one ashram. And as I mentioned this morning, like that everyone understands his dharma and his ashram, that actually individuals are properly situated in their swadharma. I think that's an aspect of our ashram. Right? Everyone is actually according to his ability, talents, is properly situated. I think that's also a very important aspect of our ashram. And maybe we don't also speak so much about this. What does it actually mean to be in a certain dharma, a certain ashram? And then of course, with that together comes the
was also thinking that many think it's just a big risk to take the first step because now there's not much established. So who will guarantee us that if we go out and do it, that we'll get an insurance when we'll be older? Because now we see many devotees who were so engaged in the mission, but maybe they didn't take sannyas or they don't have a family to take care of them, and now they're like broke and forgotten kind of. So maybe this aspect of senior care is kind of bringing this fear of why should we make the first step or how.
Yes. Okay, one more hand to add to the mixture.
Another thing is that we have an education system where we're not given any skills practically after the age of 20.
Not giving
Any skills, any practical skills. We just provide some academic skills, and which actually doesn't give us any ability to understand how to deal with material nature and material world.
Yes.
Therefore, we don't understand what to do at that age. 20 when one, 20 plus, one goes out and also deal with material nature, doesn't know.
Yes. Yes, as we can see, there are many aspects. The subject matter in itself, I would say, largely because for most devotees, it is not a subject matter that has been thoroughly brought up and discussed, and therefore there's a lot of aspects which are not clear about the whole ideology, especially in the context of a modern setup, modern day society. And I would say that what's important, especially important for all of us, is to understand the need for at least hearing, especially what Srila Prabhupada tried to explain, what different instructions he gave, and depending on how attentive we are to hearing, reading about such matters, then proportionately, definitely, we will be in a better. I think there's a general need for more exposure, we need to give more time. And of course, different devotees will have different levels of understanding, which is fine. But overall, it's a very involved subject matter. You know, it is similar to what all of us are especially focused on, trying to understand about the science of bhakti, the science of devotional service. It's a very profound and deep subject matter. And we know that even after practicing for years, there's so much still to know, to understand, to experience. In a similar way, it is like that for this other science. It is also a science, the science of Varnashram Dharma is quite involved, and naturally it takes some time for us as devotees to get a more clear understanding. And that's one of the recommendations we will be giving at the end of our seminar today, which is dealing with the subject matter, the seminar on Gita Nagari. We'll be leaving one of our important books that was compiled actually some years back, which is entitled Speaking About Varnashrama. Some of you have know about this particular compilation, and it's one of 5 references that are especially important for us to more easily, I would say, understand what Srila Prabhupada was trying to convey to all of us. And, in a similar way that spiritual life is not so easy, becoming a pure devotee, becoming totally disconnected with the modes of material nature, it's a nice philosophy, but not so easy to accomplish. Similarly, what is meant to be, it's in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, what is ideal society, the ideal family life, these are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So unless we hear about it and discuss these topics that are presented especially by Narada Muni, and upon which Srila Prabhupada makes very important comments, has given us purports further describing and explaining with what Narada Muni is presenting, then it will make it more difficult for us to actually understand. So those who may not be able to attend the seminar later on today, I would recommend that they still maybe speak to those who will have attended and especially try to read these different references that we'll be giving. The 2 are foremost, I would say. I mentioned about speaking about Varnashrama, a compilation of instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, and the other is what I just referred to here, the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapters 11 to 15. The last 5 chapters are very important. It's a whole presentation by Narada Muni on the subject matter as well. It's, in as much as spiritual life and the need to know about bhakti, devotional service is important, it is also very important to learn about what Srila Prabhupada has conveyed to us on many occasions, even at the very end of his physical presence. I mean, maybe just a few weeks before leaving his body, Srila Prabhupada reminded us of the importance of establishing Varnashrama. And so therefore, the perfection of disciples and followers of our teachers, of our acharyas, is to take their instructions to heart and endeavor to the best of our ability to understand. Okay, for the time being, that's fine. Jai Grantaraj Bhagavatam Ki Jai Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.